Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Monday, March the 14th, and welcome to our commentary. Before I go any further, I'm going to make sure that you know that I recorded our weekly This Week in Review with our friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda, and I've got it on this page. You can go to my blog and listen to it, but it's also available on this page where you're watching this video. So we do this once a week. Bill is the editor of Urgent Agenda, a wonderful website. He has a great story, by the way. His biography is fascinating. He used to work for Johnny Carson on the Johnny Carson show. He worked at the CIA. He worked at the New York Times. He's a man who obviously has had quite a few experiences in life, and he shares them in his blog, Urgent Agenda. And once a week, we do what we call the Week in Review, and we take a look at some of the issues in the country. So that's available as a podcast on my blog, as well as on the Facebook page or Twitter page or whichever page you follow my program. One of the things that we talked about with Bill today, of course, was what is happening in the country and how quickly this country has deteriorated. I mean, if you just think about it, in 14 months from January 2021 to here, the middle of March 2022, look at what's happened in the country. 14 months ago, the price of gasoline was $2. The oil barrel was $45. The border, at least there was a sense of order on the border. We obviously did not have troops in Ukraine, or even forming to invade Ukraine. And I think there was a sense in the country. There was a lot of chaos too, a lot of political chaos. I'm not going to underestimate that, the election, and I don't think President Trump's reaction to the election was the best that it could have been. I think he should have probably accepted the results a lot sooner. But nevertheless, if you look at the country, if you look at the state of the country, it's not gone very well under President Biden for the last 4 months. And that explains, I think, the decline in his approval ratings and the reason why many of the experts feel that the Democrats are going to have a very difficult time in November. Now, of course, it doesn't help when the Vice President Harris goes to Europe and she's doing press conferences and representing the United States and seems confused, seems unable to answer pretty easy questions about what our policy is and so on, even at a point a couple of days ago where she was speaking at a Democrat conference, that is, Democrat Party conference. And she said, I'm sure she must have misread the teleprompter or whatever, but she actually said, we're going to defend the NATO alliance, including Ukraine, as if somehow that NATO or that Ukraine was a part of NATO, which of course it isn't. So all of this confusion going over the air and going out to people is contributing to the image of this administration not being ready for the major leagues, as they like to say. I mean, this is an amateurish performance, whether it's the president or the vice president. The president ran. He was supposed to be the centrist moderate. He has not governed in that fashion. On the contrary, has let the left wing of his party basically tell him what to do on most issues, whether it's climate change, whether it's the Green Deal, whether it's immigration, whether it's the border, whether it's economic policy. I mean, he's governing as if Bernie Sanders had been elected president. But that's not the man Democrats nominated. In fact, the Democrats went out of their way to say, we're not going to nominate Bernie Sanders. We're going to nominate a centrist, a moderate by the name of Joe Biden. None of that has materialized. None of it has materialized. So either Joe Biden is the unluckiest guy in the planet, meaning all these bad things are happening on his watch, or maybe he's projecting weakness and inviting for these things to happen on his watch. I don't know. But the truth is that we have seen a collapse of just about everything in 14 months. And look at the price of oil. Look at the price of gasoline. Look at the inflation. The other problem is that the administration has been trying to somehow they're trying to explain that, they're trying to explain to the American people that somehow the increase in the price of gasoline or the price of oil or whatever is due to the invasion of Ukraine. And most Americans are reacting to that, saying you're out of your mind. Before Ukraine, the price of gasoline went from 210 to 350. It was 350 the day that Ukraine was invaded. So all of these things, are hurting the Biden administration and making it very difficult for the Biden administration to deal with serious things like Ukraine. And that's the problem. That's why I think so many people have turned off this administration. That's why I think the president's approval ratings have dropped as much as they have. And this is why they're having so much difficulty, even within their own party. Now, at the moment, for example, they're negotiating this Iran deal, the so-called Iran nuclear deal, and they're having a lot of problems persuading Congress. They're having a lot of problems persuading the Senate. As you know, the president of the United States cannot go out and commit the country to an international deal like this. It has to be in the form of a treaty, which means it has to be approved by the Senate. Well, they don't have the support in the Senate. They know it. So all they're going to end up doing is writing an executive agreement like the Paris Climate Change Accords that have no legal validity whatsoever because they were not approved by the Senate in the form of a treaty. And that's what they've come down to. They don't have the ability to do anything constitutionally or seriously. And that's why they're having so many problems. So it's just not a very easy time right now to be watching the events in the United States. And again, when you look at the price of oil and you look at gasoline and you look at the inflation that is coming, 30% of the cost of anything you buy, 30% is the cost of transportation. So this increase that we've had right now, going from $3.50 to over $4 in most of the country, $5 in some parts of the country, that's going to be reflected in the next 2 months when you go shopping at the grocery store and when you go shopping everywhere. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to talk to a friend of mine who's a small businessman here in the area. He has a print shop. And we were talking about price increases, and he was telling me, look, I cannot compete unless I increase prices. I cannot make ends meet without increasing prices. But at the same time, he said, I don't know how much more I can increase prices and keep customers coming in, because that's what a lot of economists are fearing now. They're fearing the recession that usually follows these kinds of price increases. So it's not a pleasant time, not a pleasant time at all for those of us who live in the United States. It's not a good time at all. Now, it's not a problem unique to the United States, but nevertheless, this is the country we live in, and this is what we have to deal with these problems. One more thing that I wanted to say, and we always enjoy saying happy birthday on our videos, but I want to say happy number 94 to Frank Borman. If you're not familiar with Frank Borman, it's Borman. Frank Borman was one of the 3 men in the famous Apollo 8 mission back December of 1968. They were the first 3 men to go around the moon. And they were the men who took that great shot of the Earth, hanging in the sky like a bouncing, like a ball up there in the sky. They're the ones who took that picture of the Earth that became so famous. I think many of you may remember the front cover of Life magazine with the big picture of the Earth all the way from the moon. So they were the ones in that mission. And Frank Borman was the captain of that mission. And if you're old enough to remember December 24th, 1968, when the 3 men in that mission read from the book of Genesis on Christmas night to sending a Christmas message to those of us down here on the earth. And I was actually in my car with my parents coming home from midnight mass on December 24th, 1968, when I remember hearing that on the radio. And it was such a moving message. It was such a great message to hear the book of Genesis being read from 3 men who are up in space many, many thousands of miles away. And it's something I'll always remember about Apollo 8. And of course, Frank Borman being the captain of that mission. So happy number 94, Mr. Borman. I don't know where you are now. I'm assuming you're doing well. And I wish you a long life, many, many more years, to Frank Borman, one of the 3 men of Apollo 8. By the way, one of the other two, I don't remember all three, but I remember the other one was Jim Lovell, who ended up being on Apollo 13. And that, of course, was another story altogether, Apollo 13. But Jim Lovell was one of those three men on Apollo 8 who later, as I say, ended up on the Apollo 13 mission. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.